Hello. Been a while, hasn't it? Sorry. So, just a few days into 2015, and we have the attacks in Paris. Religious types killing because they're offended.
Quite rightly, the vast majority here in the West have stood squarely in support of freedom of speech, sadly including a number of political leaders whose posturing on the grounds of freedom of speech struck many of us as crass hypocrisy. But it has been forcefully asserted that there is no right to not be offended. It may be said that Muslims found the antics of the caricaturists of Charlie Hebdo provoking. But so what? An adult may choose how they respond to provocation. And to say, so what, is not to express any anti-Muslim sentiment, because the Islam per se is, in actual fact, not central to the matter. And to explain why, I shall now turn to the Pope, who, according to extensive research on my part, is definitely not Muslim.
The Pope. The relevant comments were made about a week after the attack, as the Pope addressed journalists travelling with him on his recent shindig to the Philippines. He said this:
Non si può provocare, non si può insultare la fede degli altri, non si può prendere in giro la fede. Mamma, c'è un limite. Ogni religione ha dignità.
Well, I don't think we should go out of our way to insult people, that's just unkind, but we must be free to comment. There can be no no-go areas, no sacred cows. We must be free to comment upon the beliefs, actions and practices of our fellow citizens, and there can be no limit to such. If there is a limit to our ability to comment upon our fellow citizens, then there is no freedom of speech. But the Pope says that there is a limit, and we cannot make fun of another person's religion. Well, he would say that, wouldn't he? His justification for this statement is that provoking people over that which they love and hold precious may elicit a violent response. Well, it may.
The analogy the Pope draws is of insulting one's mother. Why do that? Why insult someone's mother? How nasty is that? Perhaps such nastiness ought to be met with a firm response.
Well, it may be argued. A gross provocation may elicit an extreme response. We should hope for a more considered response perhaps, but perhaps the release of the gut instinct is at least understandable. This is, I think, the Pope's position. The problem is that the Pope is asserting that the provoking act, that which he holds to be analogous to insulting someone's mum, is the insulting or ridiculing of religion. And it isn't. Because the insulting or ridiculing of religion in the instances that we are discussing are in fact themselves responses to a provocation.
The drawing of cartoons ripping into theistic practice and beliefs is the response to theists laying down the law about what the rest of us may or may not do. It works like this. We live in a society with many different and often competing ideas as to what it is to be human, how a life is best lived, what we ought to value, how we ought to behave.
It was the Enlightenment that really figured out that basically we've just got to accept all of these differences and just sort of muddle along together. So we put in place a civil law before which we are all equal, and a person's metaphysics, or, for that matter, a person's rejecting of any metaphysics, is their own affair, provided that the pursuit of said outlook hurts no third parties. Let them get on with it. Live and let live.
The various religions become, effectively, a selection of private members' clubs. Club members expected to follow certain rules as established by the club, but these clubs are always subject to the law of the land. This allows everyone the space to pursue their metaphysics, and we all rub along.
Such is the theory. Where it breaks down is that theists are convinced they're special, and claim not only the right to decide how they should live their lives, which is fine, but also how others, not of their club, should live their lives, which is not.
And that's why the initial provoking act is not drawing a cartoon of, or pointing out the hypocrisy of a church that insists on models of morality for its followers that cost some of those followers their lives, whilst covering up generations of child rape.
The act of provocation is theists telling people who are not of their private members' club what they may or may not do, or, for that matter, machinating to render clergy exempt from the process of law. In a culture that seeks to accommodate all diversity of belief to avoid returning to a long history of religious warring, any private members club insisting it has some primacy or some exemption or is entitled to extra sweeties threatens the culture, is actually attacking the culture, is provoking the culture. I have not joined the Muslim club. Therefore, the strictures of the Muslim club may not be applied to me, and insisting they must is a provocation. It so happens I was born into the Catholic club. I reject it absolutely. I am not in that club. I have resigned. The Pope has precisely zero say in how I live my life, and for him to seek to impact upon my life in the smallest way is a provocation, which, by the Pope's argument, may be responded to with violence. I decline the Pope's championing of fisticuffs and will settle for tasteless cartoons and ripping the piss until the religions stop telling me and everyone else what we may or may not do. For they have no right. They are not special. They are not entitled to extra sweeties. And if theists could just grasp and accept that one ickle point, a not inconsiderable proportion of our troubles would just melt away.